Okay, let's go over what's included in the package of the Moondrop Chus. We've got the packaging here, has some pretty cool artwork on that. We've got the IEMs, the Moondrop spring tips, which those are some great tips. We'll talk about those in a little bit. We have a neat little carrying pouch and some ear hooks. The build of the Moondrop Chu is actually really good. It's made out of a zinc alloy, so the shells feel very light but durable. The comfort and fit are excellent. They are small shells, so they fit nicely in my ear. They also have a long enough nozzle, so they go in nice and deep and seal quite nicely. The design is cool. I like the black and gold color scheme they have going on here. Of course, that is painted, so you might want to be kind of careful with the paint. I usually keep mine in the pouch, and I try to be careful with it. I haven't had any issues with the paint chipping, but I know that that can happen if you're not very careful with it. The cable is actually pretty good. I like it. And I've heard a lot of complaints about the cable. It is a little bit grippy, so if it does get tangled up, it can be a little bit hard trying to untangle it because of its grippy texture. And it's also a non-detachable cable. So I know there are some people who have actually modded the IEMs so that you can add a 2-pin connector to it and make a detachable cable, which is great. But for $20, I think this cable is just fine. It feels durable, and I think that's the main thing for me is just it being a durable IEM, something that I don't have to worry about. And that's the thing about this. For $20, because of the price and the build quality, it's just I feel like I can grab it and not really worry about messing it up. I can put it in my pocket and feel like it's going to be just fine. And again, since it's $20, I'm not really super worried about damaging it or losing it. Anyways, overall, I think the build and the design are quite nice. Okay, let's talk about the sound of the Moondrop Chu, and we'll also kind of talk about what makes this special and kind of sets it apart from other budget IEMs. I'll try to explain to you why it's getting the reviews that it's getting, because typically with a $20 IEM, you just don't see this kind of hype. So, and of course, before I got my hands on the Moondrop Chu, I was just chomping at the bit. I wanted so bad, because of all the great reviews out there, I wanted so bad to be able to hear these for myself to see if the hype was real, of course. So now that I've done testing, now that I've compared it to other IEMs, I think I have a pretty good idea, a pretty good handle on why this has received the attention that it's received. And if you kind of look back at the Moondrop family, the Legacy, the A8, the S8, the Starfield, the Aria, you got the Blessing 2, and that's kind of why I put these out here, because these are the ones that I actually have. Blessing 2, the Variations, the Blessing 2 Dusk, all of their IEMs kind of have something not just special about them, not just unique, but they kind of all have something that goes above and beyond any other IEMs in their category. These things are all very, very competitive within their price category. And again, the Blessing 2 competing way above its price point. The Blessing 2 Dusk competing way above its price point. And it seems like that's kind of a thing with Moondrop. It seems like they're constantly one-upping themselves. And now they come out with a $20 IEM. It's just a single dynamic titanium coated driver. Nothing special really. It does have, again, we talked about the build. The build is good. The design is good. It doesn't have a detachable cable. And it comes with the great Moondrop spring tips. But the thing that sets the Moondrop Chu apart from other IEMs in this price category is the tuning. The technicalities are pretty good, but I would say that really, again, the thing that really sets this apart is the tuning. But if you look at other IEMs in this price category, $20, even up to, I would say, $80, you're typically going to find an IEM that has a V-shaped tuning. It's rare that you're going to find anything outside of that. One other IEM that I have recently reviewed that I was really impressed by, that actually is $22, I think, is the Tantrum Tanya. That one had a tuning that really appealed to me, even though technically it kind of does fall within that V shape. The mids aren't super recessed. I think that to me it came across more neutral with a little bit of a warm, a little bit of a bass boost, but it was just tuned so nicely, and even the technical performance of that IEM for the price was pretty good. So up until now, that was kind of my reference $20 IEM. That was the IEM that I felt kind of dominated that $20 price category, and the one that impressed me the most. Now you have the Moondrop Chu. But before we move any further, I want to talk about the included spring tips, because these actually have also been receiving a lot of attention, and I actually did a full written review on these, comparing these to 4 of my other favorite tips, most used tips. And these have actually, again, been getting a lot of attention. They are really nice tips. When I was doing my review, I did give them a top rating for comfort. They didn't do great in the sound portion of my review because of they don't have a very rigid dome. The rubber that they use on these is pretty soft, and so it's not very good at isolation. And also it has a very, very wide bore, as you can see. But they're still, but as far as comfort, they're very, very good. And I do have a few IEMs that I actually use these with. I use these with my Mest MK2s. I also used these with my Theato Monarch MK2s. But unfortunately, they don't pair very well with the Moondrop Chu, which is okay. Again, all you gotta, I think, and some of you might be happy with the pairing the Moondrop, the spring tip with the Chu. It's just that did something to the tuning that wasn't super appealing to me. And again, now the tuning of the Chu is what Moondrop calls their VDSF target. So if you look at the graph, what you're going to see is an elevation in the lower treble and upper mids. Those lower treble and upper mids are pushed pretty far forward. And then, so that was one thing that kind of pushed those frequencies a little too far forward for my taste. And because of the wide bore on these nozzles, it just seemed like that didn't do that any favors. And what that did for me is it just made cymbals sometimes a little bit splashy and maybe sound a little bit unnatural. Not every recording, not all the time, just sometimes. But also the bass is, I do wish these had a little bit more lower mid bass and bass presence. It has a good amount of sub bass presence, but it just feels like it's a little lean in the mid bass area, and these don't help with that. So what I did was I switched over to, this is one of my favorite tips actually right here. This is the final Type E tip. And with the narrower bore and the stiffer dome, this did the trick. This actually tamed the treble frequencies a little bit for me, and it also has a little bit more of a rigid dome, so it just reinforced those bass frequencies. So if you get the Chus and you're not happy with the spring tips, just do some tip rolling and you might actually find yourself really enjoying the Moondrop Chu with just something as simple as changing out the ear tip. That was the case for me. Once I switched out the ear tip, I really, really just found the tuning of the Chu much more pleasing. Now, as far as technical performance, that's where I would say the Moondrop Chu just does okay. I'd say it's about average and about what you would expect from a $20 up to $50 IEM. Soundstage is wide. It's not super wide, but it's definitely adequate. Imaging is just okay. I do wish that the instruments and the vocals had a little more of a density and a little more of a defined space within the sound field. Sometimes vocals and instruments can sound kind of like they're just kind of floating within the sound field. There's not like a super defined area for each of the instruments and vocals, but it's good enough. Again, I would say better than what I would expect from a $20 IEM. As far as detail retrieval in the treble, the detail retrieval is really good. Cymbals sound nice and detailed, and hi-hats have good sizzle moving. As far as detail retrieval in the mids, that's where things, you don't quite have the same amount of detail retrieval in the mids and the bass that you do in the treble, but it's still adequate. I would say better than what you would expect for $20. Texture and layering in the lower mids and the mid bass is, I would say, it's about average, not great, but not bad. But again, they focused on what mattered, and that's the tuning. And again, if you buy the Chu and you find that the tuning doesn't work for you with the Moondrop spring tips, try other tips. Try something that has a little more of a stiffer dome and maybe a narrower bore hole, and see if that works for you. And again, these are actually great tips and you might find these tips work great with other IEMs like I did. Anyway, I would say overall, again, what you have to do when I'm reviewing these, I always bottom line everything and I take everything into context within its price range. And again, for $20, you're going to have a really difficult time finding another IEM that beats this. I don't think, for me personally, I don't think there's anything else other than maybe the Tantrum Tanya, and I would even say that comes in personally to me second to this. This now fills that space of being the best IEM for $20. I would say even up to $50 in my opinion. So Moondrop did it again, really, in my opinion. They've always put out a consistently good product, and the Moondrop Chu definitely, I would say, represents the Moondrop family very, very well. And I just give Moondrop props for them putting out something that's affordable, but yet is still tuned very, very well. So that concludes my review of the Moondrop Chu. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Please like it, please share it, and please subscribe to the channel. I hope you guys have an awesome day.